The cold Scandinavian air carried the scent of pine and snow. Police lights flickered through the trees like restless ghosts, painting the frost-covered ground in shades of red and blue. It was 4:12 a.m. when officers from the Örebro County Police arrived at the woodland clearing after a local hunter reported finding something strange buried beneath a pile of branches, a torn piece of fabric, soaked dark with blood. The silence was heavy, only broken by the crunch of boots over ice and the distant hum of the forensic van. When the tarp was lifted, even the most seasoned officers froze. Inside the shallow pit lay something unrecognizable fragments of what once was a person, scattered like discarded secrets. A woman's gold bracelet, engraved with L Hartsuit L, was the only clue left untouched by the cold. Detective Michael Strand removed his gloves, studying the bracelet under the beam of his flashlight. "Linda," he whispered. "It's Linda." Linda Svensson, 27, had been missing for 3 days. Her boyfriend, Leonard Holm, reported her disappearance, claiming she stormed out after an argument. He sounded distraught, his voice trembling during the interview. But Michael had seen it before, the kind of panic that came not from loss, but from guilt. The investigation began to unfold quickly. Surveillance footage from a nearby petrol station showed Linda's red Volvo the night she vanished. A second car appeared behind her moments later, a dark blue Peugeot, registered to Jenny Larson, a 24-year-old nursing student from Uppsala and Leonard's new girlfriend. Jenny appeared calm when police knocked on her door that morning. Her long blonde hair was tied neatly. Her eyes, a cold blue, showed no trace of panic. "Linda," she said softly, pretending to recall the name. "Oh, Leonard's ex. I don't know her personally." But the officers noticed something strange. A faint red stain on her cuff, a bleach smell that clung to her hallway, and in her trash been a torn movie DVD cover for Dexter, the complete series. That night, investigators returned with a warrant. Inside Jenny's small apartment, the air was stale, heavy with cleaning chemicals. They found her washing machine still running. When they opened it, they froze inside. Soaked and twisted was a woman's blood-stained scarf. Jenny's laptop told the rest of the story. Her search history read like a descent into madness. How make someone disappear? How long does blood last in the snow? Scandinavian Forest Police response time. She had even bookmarked a map of the local woodland, the same forest, where Linda's remains had just been found. When questioned, Jenny broke easily. Her voice trembled, but her words were chillingly clear. She wouldn't let him go, she said. I had to make sure she was gone for good. But the truth was darker than jealousy. The forensics team discovered that Linda's wounds were deliberate, almost surgical. Cuts so precise they seemed practiced, not random, not frenzied. Jenny wasn't just angry. She had planned this. For weeks. Investigators pieced together the timeline. On the night of February 8th, Jenny lured Linda under the pretense of reconciliation, claiming she wanted to talk woman to woman. She drove her to the forest, claiming Leonard would meet them there. What happened next was chaos and silence. The snow covered everything except the trail of tire marks that led straight back to Jenny's apartment. But there was still one question no one could answer. How did Leonard fit into all this? Had he known? Or was he the next victim of Jenny's twisted obsession? Detective Strand stared at a photograph of the couple, pinned to the evidence board. Jenny smiling, Leonard's arm around her shoulder. To anyone else, they look happy. But to Strand, something about the man's eyes felt off. Too calm, too rehearsed. Then, late that night, a forensics officer burst through the station doors, holding a phone sealed in a plastic bag. "Detective, you'll want to see this." It was Leonard's, found in a river near his home. Inside it, dozens of messages from Jenny, desperate, pleading, and then threatening. But the last text wasn't from her. It was from Leonard, sent an hour before Linda vanished. It read, "Do it tonight, and make sure she doesn't come back." Snow fell over Örebro like ash from a dying fire. The case had already consumed every headline across Sweden. The girl who loved too deeply, one paper read. Another called her the Swedish Dexter. But behind the headlines and the courtroom whispers, Detective Michael Strand knew the story wasn't over. Jenny Larson sat in the interrogation room, wrapped in a gray prison blanket, her wrists trembling above the cold steel table. Her once pristine hair now hung loose, strands sticking to her pale cheeks. The media had painted her as a monster, but as Strand watched her through the two-way mirror, he saw something different. She didn't look dangerous. She looked lost. When he entered, Jenny didn't look up. "He told me he loved me," she said quietly. Her voice was barely audible, but her words cut like glass. "He said she was the only thing standing in our way. He said I had to prove it." Strand took a seat across from her. "Jenny," he began, "you told officers you acted alone, but the messages on Leonard's phone, they tell a different story." Jenny's lips quivered. "You don't understand," she whispered. "He planned everything. He told me where to take her. He said we could start fresh if I just handled it." She paused, clutching the blanket tighter. "He said he couldn't live without me." Strand's pen stopped midair. "Did you kill Linda because Leonard asked you to?" Jenny looked up for the first time, her eyes wide and hollow. "I killed her because I thought I was saving us," she said. "But when it was done, when I called him, he didn't answer." Her confession was chilling, but it wasn't enough. Leonard Holm had vanished. His house stood empty, his car abandoned in a nearby parking lot, keys still in ignition. Neighbors told police they'd seen him loading bags into his trunk 2 nights earlier, but no one saw him leave. The manhunt began. Interpol alerts went out. Airports, train stations, and border crossings were placed on watch. Days turned into weeks. Every lead went cold, every tip a dead end. Then, in mid-March, a forest ranger stumbled upon a half-burned duffel bag near the edge of a frozen lake. Inside were men's clothes, and a passport belonging to Leonard Holm. Detective Strand stood by the water, the wind biting at his face. "He's not dead," he muttered. "He's hiding." Back at the station, the forensic lab confirmed the final clue. On the passport, faint traces of Jenny's blood. It didn't make sense. How could Leonard's belongings end up here, stained with evidence from the murder scene, if he wasn't involved? Strand ordered the digital forensics team to dig deeper. Every file, every message, every backup. Days later, one of them called him in. "Sir, we found something." On Leonard's cloud backup, an audio file labeled simply Voice Note 12. The recording crackled with static before a familiar voice spoke. "Leonard's. She's getting worse," he said, voice low and tense. "I didn't think she'd actually do it, but she did. I told her it was just a fantasy, a game, but she took it too far. I have to disappear before she turns on me, too." Strand felt his pulse quicken. "Pause it there," he ordered. Jenny hadn't been the only monster in this story. She was a pawn in a cruel psychological trap, manipulated by a man who fed her obsession, only to discard her once it became real. Still, something about the message felt wrong. The timestamp on the audio was dated 2 days after Linda's murder, but phone records placed Leonard's SIM card near Jenny's apartment that night. Had he sent the message himself? Or had someone else uploaded it to make it seem that way? The deeper the detectives dug, the more twisted it became. Bank transfers showed Leonard withdrawing large sums of cash over several weeks. A security camera from a small gas station south of Gothenburg caught a brief glimpse of him, hooded, nervous, and very much alive, 3 days after his supposed disappearance. Jenny's lawyer pushed for leniency, claiming she had been manipulated and emotionally abused. "She's not a killer," the defense argued. "She's a victim of control." But in the eyes of the public, the story was simpler. She had killed, and someone had to pay. As the trial approached, Strand's team made one final discovery. A small SD card hidden in the lining of Jenny's handbag, seized weeks earlier. Inside was a folder named Proof. There were photos, blurred, shaky, but unmistakable. Leonard and Linda together. The date stamp, the night before Linda's death. And in the last image, captured on what looked like a hidden phone camera, Leonard was looking directly at the lens. Eyes cold, deliberate, as if he knew he was being watched. The next morning, as Strand reviewed the photos again, his phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Detective Strand, you're looking in the wrong place." She wasn't the only one who needed to be silenced. Attached was a location pin, deep in the same forest where Linda had died. Strand's breath caught. Get a team together, he barked. Now! As the police van sped into the snow-covered woods, headlights cutting through the darkness, one thought haunted him. If Leonard was still out there, then this wasn't over. The forest was silent again, that terrible, heavy silence that only comes after something awful has happened. Snowflakes drifted like ash through the air as Detective Michael Strand and his team followed the GPS coordinates from the anonymous message. Their headlights cut through the mist, illuminating a narrow, winding road flanked by tall, skeletal trees. No one spoke. Even the radio stayed off. The signal led them to an abandoned cabin, its wooden frame half-collapsed under years of rot. Faded police tape from an unrelated case fluttered weakly on the porch, a reminder how crime never really left this part of Sweden. Thermals picking something up inside, one officer whispered, peering through his handheld scanner. Could be human. Strand nodded, moving slow. The door creaked open. Inside, the stench of decay mixed with damp wood and gasoline. On a small table near the window sat a single glass of red wine, untouched, frozen solid. In the center of the room, beneath a tattered blanket, lay what was unmistakably a body. The forensic team worked silently as Strand knelt beside it. When they lifted the blanket, he froze. The face, or what was left of it, was barely recognizable. But the jawline, the hair, the leather watch still strapped to his wrist. Leonard Holm, the man who started it all. The man everyone had been hunting for weeks. But something wasn't right. Next to the body was a half-burned notebook, its pages charred but still legible. Written in Leonard's unmistakable handwriting were words that sent chills down Strand's spine. She found me. I thought she was still locked up. But she found me. I hear her outside the cabin every night. She says I made her do it. Maybe she's right. For a long moment, no one moved. Jenny Larson had been in custody the entire time. There was no way she could have reached him. So who wrote that message to lure police here? And if Jenny wasn't the one stalking Leonard in his final days, who was? Back at the precinct, forensic reports confirmed the body had been there for at least a week. Cause of death, blunt force trauma to the skull. But the most disturbing detail wasn't how Leonard died. It was what was missing. His right hand. It had been cleanly severed. Strand leaned back in his chair, exhaustion weighing on him. A copycat, he muttered. Or a message? The media erupted once again. The killer returns, one headline read. The forest claims another. But the real story stayed buried in the case files. What investigators found next. A week after Leonard's body was recovered, a small envelope arrived at the Örebro Police Department. No return address. Inside was a memory card labeled, "Watch Me." The footage showed a dark, grainy video, like something recorded on a hidden dash cam. The timestamp read 2 days before Leonard's death. The camera faced a forest road, headlights in the distance, and then a woman stepping into frame. Her face was shadowed by the hood of her coat, but when she turned toward the lens, Strand's breath caught. It was Jenny, except it couldn't be. She was still in pretrial detention when this was filmed, confirmed by timestamp and prison records. The footage showed her walking toward the camera, pale and slow, like she was sleepwalking. Then she whispered something. The audio was faint but chillingly clear. "You said no one would ever find us, Leonard. You were wrong." And then the feed cut to static. When Strand replayed it for the 5th time, one of his officers noticed something strange in the reflection of the car window. Another figure, barely visible. A man in a police uniform. It wasn't one of theirs. The realization hit like a thunderclap. Someone inside the investigation, someone with access to the evidence, had been tampering, leaking, and manipulating the case from the start. The police launched an internal review. 3 officers were quietly suspended. 2 refused to testify. The mysterious video was never traced to its source. In the final court session, Jenny was convicted of manslaughter, not murder, after her defense proved psychological coercion by Leonard. She was sentenced to 20 years in a psychiatric correctional facility outside Stockholm, but justice brought no peace. Months later, a guard at the facility reported strange behavior. Jenny would sit by the window for hours, staring into the tree line, whispering to someone only she could see. The The final entry in her psychiatric evaluation read, "Patient insists Leonard still visits her. Claims he tells her what to do next. Says he wants her to finish what they started." That same week, a hiker in the same Örebro forest found a new shallow grave. Freshly dug, frost still clinging to the edges. Inside was a single object, a man's severed hand, clutching a broken police badge. When Detective Strand was shown the evidence photo, he said nothing for a long time. Then he turned away and whispered, "Some stories never end. They just wait